Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Nerds with Badges, where typically I would be talking about pop culture related stuff, uh, comics, video games, movies, music, um, toys, nerd stuff. Hence the name Nerds with Badges. Nerds with Badges because I'm a nerd and I'm a security guard, so I would like to dialogue with other people that work either in security, law enforcement, military, you're a nerd with a badge, you know, get together and dialogue. And I've been doing a lot of like solo stuff. It's just easier that way. But sometimes it's just hard to schedule people because of your work schedule. I don't have a traditional work schedule. I work nights, so it's hard for me to even schedule people to do appearances and things. But I will be doing more just getting schedules. Uh, I got to learn how to use Zoom too. I remember when Skype was a thing, and then it was people use Messenger a lot, but Zoom seems to be the new thing. So anyway, I've been doing a series of videos for the last. This is day 14 now. So I've been talking about my Kickstarter campaign for my comic book, which is Dragon Manx. Dragon Manx, if you don't know, is a superhero who sort of retired because his powers started messing up on him, and he's comes out of retirement, semi-retirement really, because he's still been dealing with supernatural shit since he's been living in Detroit, Michigan. He's trying to kind of figure out his place in everything. You got powers and they don't really work like they used to, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. So Dragon Manx comes out of semi-retirement and he investigates mysterious deaths of psychic children, and he's pulled into this really big epic saga. So he's got some backup, thankfully, since his powers are kind of undependable. We have Ernest. Ernest is a vampire and is a on off on again romantic interest of Dragon Manx. They were together, sort of. Didn't things didn't work out, but they still, you know how it is. Sometimes people have a breakup and they hook back up and they get, it's, still have that connection with each other. Now Ernest is a newly turned vampire. He's struggling with his vampirism. So Dragon Manx has been charged to basically watch over Ernest to make sure that he doesn't eat anybody. So it's like Ernest has got to learn how to be a vampire. So Ernest is also being mentored by another vampire, an ancient vampire by the name of Nadun. And every now and then, him and Dragon Manx get together and fight crime. So it's kind of like almost like the Catwoman and Batman weird kind of relationship. They total opposites, but they have a connection with each other and they help each other out from time to time. And one thing about Ernest is he cannot leave Detroit, Michigan, unless he is with a Dragon Mix. So they have to be together all the time. Otherwise, the Vampire Nation will destroy him because Ernest, he has powers that the typical vampires don't have because he was sired by one of Dracula's sons, and these are like very powerful vampires. So basically, Ernest had went out clubbing as people do sometimes, had a little bit too much to drink, drugs or whatever, and he had a one night stand. He gets bitten by one of Dracula's sons, and he wakes up the next day and he's like looking in the mirror and his reflection is like disappearing and fading in and out, and he's like freaking out and he's like hungry and kind of realizes what's going on. He tracks down Dragon Manx, also known as Goyangi Armstrong. That's his real name. And Goyangi's Dragon Manx is in a situation where he's talking with someone, and so Ernest shows up, and Ernest is like fully like just super hungry because he's just been turned into a vampire, and he's got this urge, and so Dragon Manx ends up having to beat him up, kind of like rough him up, and then before anything else, some other vampires who are sent, who are actually friends of Dragon Manx. Two other characters I'll introduce in the stories later, but they're the two sons, actually two of Dracula's sons, Thaddeus and Decaveric. Thaddeus is a vampire who always he wants to be a movie star, but he can't because vampires don't really photograph. Because he's a half vampire, half human, he sort of kind of appears on camera sometimes because he's a hybrid, but he has he has to make make peace with the fact that he can't really be a superstar, a movie star because of his vampiric condition. And so you have the Caverick. The Caverick is a vampire werewolf character, and he has powers very similar to a Superman or Wonder Woman type character. I actually wrote a bunch of short stories about the Caverick years ago, and I actually introduced him on it was a website called blackplanet.com. Black Planet. I don't know if it's still around, but this was before Twitter and MySpace and Facebook and all this. But yeah, it was a site called Black Planet, very much like Facebook before there was Facebook. And like a lot of things, eventually kind of fades away and something else just takes its place. Like, I mean, like MySpace was a big thing. In MySpace, I actually met the actor and hired the actor who played. Well, it was a prototype for Captain Liberia, but it was at the time he was called. I was calling him Captain Africa until I found out that there was another Captain Africa character out there, but it's like looks like an Indiana Jones type character. So to avoid potential copyright, I was like, well, Captain Liberia. I was dating somebody from Liberia, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to kind of do like a tribute because we got Captain America, we got Captain Britain, we got Captain Canuck, so why not have a captain, have a Captain Liberia? Interesting concept. So the Caverick, I used to write these short stories about the Caverick on Black Planet, and I used to draw pictures of him back when I was drawing. Like I was this time period in the 90s, I was really doing a lot of drawing. I just kind of got out of it. I want to get back into drawing. So the Caverick, like I said, he's kind of got like Superman power, so you don't really want to mess with him. And Thaddeus, they're both Dracula's kids, and they're like in their like late 20s, and they're very powerful. Well, they're not exactly real. The vampire age is different, even though they're in their 30s. They've been in their 30s, their early 20s, their late 20s for quite some time. So they come to take Ernest away, and thus begins Ernest's journey as becoming a vampire. And then he gets put on trial, but he has to prove he's worthy of the powers that he's got and a chance. And Dragon Manx actually is instrumental in convincing the vampire nation and vampire consortium. I can't remember what I called them, but this story was years ago. So I never did a comic or live action adaptation of that, but I do want to eventually. So I used to write a lot of notes and a lot of short stories about these characters in the universe that they live in. So a lot of it is really, I go back and read some of that stuff. I'm sure a lot of it is going to be like, oh, this is some good ideas here. That could help me out with writer's block sometimes when I go back. I was reading some of these that I wrote years ago, getting some ideas from bringing updating the stories, I guess. So anyway, Ernest is in a situation. I'm about to go home now, but I just wanted to make this video and give me an excuse to use my new Chromebook Plus here, test out the video capabilities. But yeah, so Ernest is his journey as a vampire is he's an alpha level vampire, omega level vampire. I always get them mixed up, but he's very powerful. And there's another vampire that was also in a similar situation. What's the vampire's name? Elliot. Oh goodness, yeah, I almost forgot about Elliot. I'll talk about him later because Dragon Manx seems to be helping vampires out a lot. He actually helped out. There's another vampire named Elliot who also gets his powers and is a very powerful vampire. Elliot was a gangbanger, and he's comes back to life and has to deal with the fact that he can't really go back home again because now he's a vampire and his whole life has to change. The situation is a bit different from Ernest because the Vampire Nation aren't really trying to kill him. They're actually trying to use him as an assassin since he's got connections with the gang world and all that. So Ernest and Dragon Mangs team up to deal with these kids being murdered, these psychic kids being murdered by these teddy bears that were supposed to protect them, but the teddy bears are being corrupted by something. And then Captain Liberia enters the picture when one of his kids is endangered. So Dragon Manx and Captain Liberia had a falling out, but now they're forced to work together when Captain Liberia has to come to him for help. And Captain Liberia is another one of those characters. He's kind of like a Superman character. He's the son of Shango, the African god of thunder, the African equivalent of Zeus or Thor, if you will. So Captain Liberia is a demigod. He's got purple hair. He's got like electricity, vision, and can fly. He's bulletproof and all that. So in the story, Dragon Manx, the uh, the comic book is about that's featured in the Kickstarter campaign. I've got a lot of good ideas, and I started writing a novel originally for this, and then I decided to turn it into a comic book. But I haven't finished the novel yet. So as I'm writing the comic book, I'll be finishing the novel, and I want to bring in a ghostwriter to help me out with some things because I realize writing a novel is not easy. It's a lot. It's a lot that goes into it. Uh, so I think it's gonna probably end up being about 200 pages when I finish. I mean, that's the goal, somewhere around there. And so, like I said, this is day 14 of the campaign. So I just want to raise awareness and promote my comic book and reach out to you for support. And about to go home from work, rest, eat some fried chicken. Yeah, no fried chicken before you go to sleep. Coworker gave it to me. So I'm gonna just throw it in my toaster oven and just warm it up, and then yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep. Try to wake up a decent enough time. I've been waking up a little earlier than I usually do, which is good. I want to try to get some work done today because not only am I doing the Dragon Manx comic book, but I'm also working on a film project. And I got the script is done, but I want to get it formatted. So I have someone formatting the script for me, and then I'm doing a cartoon. The cartoon has been in production now for a few months. I think maybe 3, 4 months now. The cartoon has been in production, and I hired an animator that actually did a cartoon for me many moons ago. And it was actually the cartoon was about this character, Detective Pig, that I used to draw when I was a young. So this animator, I was looking around for animators. I was like, you know what? I got this animator who did this cartoon with me. I should work with him again. And this guy, James, he's got quite the resume. Very impressive stuff he's done over the years. So he's very talented. So he's doing some 3D models. The cartoon that I'm doing is called Satchwatch and the Mythology Sisterhood. And Satchwatch is a part of my connected universe. He ends up uh, teaming up with Dragon Manx, and I'll talk more about that later. More stuff for other videos, right? This was supposed to be a short video. I'm going about 15 minutes. I'm going to end this right now. But the cartoon, we just had voiceovers done a couple of months ago. The soundtrack is still being worked on. I'm thinking of doing something with the music. I don't know. I just feel like I want to do more like orchestrated type classical stuff. So these are things that I gotta think about. And also, I've got like 5 other comic books that I had started work on. Some are actually finished, so I got to start putting them together and getting them ready for publication. So I got a lot of different things working that I'm working on. And the film project that I'm doing is a relaunch of my Sons of Legend brand, which also ties into Dragon Makes. And I know I've mentioned that before, but I will get more into detail on that later. But Sons of Legend is where I started getting into live action films. It was a web series that I did way, way, way back in the day. And I did a bunch of episodes of Sons of Legend, episodes of Dragon Manx, Sins of Legend, uh, Sons of Legend, Dragon Manx, Sins of Legend, and then it was Daughters of Legend, which I lost. I lost. I lost the. I lost possession of that. That's what I'm trying to say. So I no longer own the rights to Daughters of Legend, which was really a painful lesson for me to learn about Hollywood. Sometimes Hollywood will, is can be just merciless, and there's a lot of like people, being done wrong in the industry. But that's a whole nother conversation. So Dragon Manx will be like my big splash because that will be like my big introduction, the world's big introduction to my world because I'm doing it, but I'm doing it the right way this time, and I'm layering it like how Marvel, layered the MCU. They started and they built up. So, but like the person over at DC that's in charge of everything right now, I guess my brain, he said something which I thought was really cool that he's all the stuff that they're doing with DC going forward, even the animation is going to tie in together and be like connected. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pull that off. But anyway, I'm gonna cut this video short and end it right now. And thank you for your support and your interest. And Dragon Manx, I'll be back with another video tomorrow. Take care.